elected people to send them into Washington D.C. to represent your interest, and not to get in line behind the machine that is called Washington D.C. And so I don't know. I think that some people are big upset about it. So that's about it.
It's amazing that every time democracy doesn't go its way. When I say establishment, I'm talking about this the Washington machine, the Washington elites, not looking at Democrat in that respect. So whenever things aren't going their way, it's not the same track that they like to go on, which is spend more money, government, take away more liberty.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, democracy is a problem. That's what I'm talking about. But when the opposite is true, and that way, regardless of what's happening, oh yeah, this is democracy. This is the will. So, have they ever thought to stop for a second and think that the people for these elected 20 who were going against the speaker of Kevin McCarthy, have you ever thought that these people might have been sent from places like Oklahoma, our boy Josh Burkeen, and Florida, Matt Gaetz, in Colorado, like Lauren Boebert? Have they ever stopped to think that maybe the will of those people was that they wanted them to go up there and shake things up with the status quo? And no, instead these people are called terrorists. They're called the enemy. We can't let them win, like Dan Crenshaw says.
Yeah, the Never Kevins. Yeah.
Daryl, do you have something to kind of add to all this?
Oh, believe it or not, I actually have an opinion.
Oh, amazing.
So, this is mark the date. And again, thank you, and happy Insurrection Day to everybody else as well. I know that we'll talk more later, but yeah, I mean, Kevin around the central point of all of this, and that is the damn DNC agenda mainstream networks. They have defined so many things in recent history. The most important words that they have redefined is democracy. It's no longer the expressed will of the governed. Now, democracy, in the parlance of current dialogue, means the will of the elite and those who follow them.
Yeah.
And anything contrary to that agenda or that narrative is terrorism automatically. You can't disagree with the elite, or you're a terrorist. You're an insurrectionist. You're a political hostage taker. You're a rebel.
Yeah.
And that's just not healthy dialogue at all, because words mean things. And we need to be able to disagree sometimes without using all the ad hoc, without making somebody automatically the enemy.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think that Republican voters need to. And I think that what I've seen from the media has been that the media has been, very, very skilled in things stirred up and pushing these narratives, right? You know, that Daryl, as you said, you're dealing with rebels. These are dangerous individuals, and it's like representing the people has become dangerous now, which is not an odd concept at all. But I think too.
Well, frankly, if Lauren Boebert is a dangerous person, I want some more. I want some more danger and excitement.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And it goes back to the narrative, and we'll get into this too, even with the January 6th thing. But I'm telling you, I think people don't understand, and that when you have the machine of DC and you have the machine of the media that is at work in America, the narratives that they have pushed successful in how they've pushed these narratives because of stuff. There are people that are sitting at home right now that are watching their completely different perception about things like January 6th, and then about things like this being elected, being chosen. They have a perspective on it, and it's because they've been taught that if you don't agree with the vaccine, if you don't agree with what January 6th, if you don't agree with all the different narratives that they have formed. You are a dangerous part of society. It's like the story that we put up, was it yesterday or today, where the WHO is deeming people who have been spreading anti-vaccine information as dangerous, like you're killing people globally. This kind of stuff is incredibly this is like high-powered, narratives that are being pushed that will get people killed. We're not actually doing any of the killing, right? It's the complete opposite. People that are being shot in broad daylight because of who they voted for, or whatever it is that they believe that's maybe conservative. But that never. It's always about the other. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the main thing is that like when things are going their way, they're pretty happy. Things aren't going their way. These are threats to democracy and like Daryl Simmons things. These are very specific terms these people use. You have to understand a lot of the terms these people use are legal terms. They mean certain things. They have certain mechanisms in things that dominoes start to fall. When you call someone a terrorist, when you call someone an insurrectionist, these are legal terms. These aren't just things that people say. So that's why it's important when you're watching them, you pay attention to the phrases that they use. The phrases they use are very specific, and they're meant to hit certain. Some of these words are focus grouped, and they're made to be on impact. So when conservatives talk, we're just talking about things, and we don't think the average person might not think it through all the way. But when someone is on TV and they're in Washington D.C. and they say something, it means exactly what they mean to say for a very specific reason. Make sure you're paying attention. I guess we can kind of move on to the next. Want to beat a dead horse? What's
January 6th? We can talk about that. We've already wished each other happy fake Insurrection Day. I would obviously, Daryl, we would love to have some insight from you, considering your outlook, your personal outlook, as far as January 6th, and how that affected you, and what are your thoughts 2 years later?
Yeah. Well, I had the privilege of being at the Capitol on January 6th, not in the Capitol. And again, words mean things,
right?
And I chose to carry. It's not like I'm walking around with a copy of C's hard drive or anything. But the spirit of January 6th. January 6th. We talked about it this morning. But January 6th didn't start on January 6th. Yeah. It didn't even start on January 5th when people start showing DC and getting together and having songs and micro rallies and having people speak and talk about what we were really there for, which was to make sure that our electors fulfilled their constitutional rights. There were too many questions raised in the aftermath of the election that were not being properly addressed. All anybody was asking for was to make sure that the vote the real votes were counted, that weren't counted, so that we could have faith in the institution voting. That's why 200,000 plus 250,000 patriots showed up in D.C. on that day. Some of them traveled for days and spent days there.
Yeah.
And so, really, January 6th didn't start in January. January 6th, 2021 actually started in November of 2020. And that's why there's a Supreme Court case being heard this year. I think it's number 3 on the docket. But it charges 388 members of Congress and the government dereliction of duty for not investigating the allegations of fraud associated with the 2020 election. That's going to be heard by the Supreme Court this year.
Yes, it is.
And that's all we were asking for on January 6th. Investigate the vote. And look at the response. And look at the backflips the January 6th committee has committed
Yep.
in order to make sure that they shape a narrative into something that did not exist. I did 4 or 5 national interviews from the Capitol on January 6th. None of them, because every time they ask me things like, is this an riot or insurrection? I'm like, no, we came here to witness, to make sure that our politicians found the strength to do the right thing. We didn't come here to do this bad actors we see. They're people in blacks and out here. They're not people. They're not our people. They're not what we came here to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so to watch how an event that I personally witnessed has been transformed into something that it really isn't. There's more truth to the rebellion
Right.
than there is to the allegations of from the January 6th committee. And I mean, I've lost lifelong friends because they found out I was in DC, and they're like, "Oh well, you tried to take over the government." That's not
Absurd. Yeah.
It's absolutely lunacy. But we get bombarded. The reason the American people get bombarded, uniparty, one voice narrative, and whether it's the speaker vote, or whether it's January 6th, or even independent journalist outlets like us.
Mm-hmm.
It's because the damn media gets all of their talking from one single voice.
Yep.
And that allows them to speak with one single narrative.
Yeah.
And that's all the American people hear because they're so being able to trust the news.
Yeah.
But now, even when I'm not sure that's the truth, they're still hungry, eating it up.
Yeah.
So 2 years since January 6th, I've been interviewed by the FBI Joint Terror Task Force. They actually tried to take me to jail and make me one of the more than 978 patriots who have been arrested. There are still the exact number of people still being detained in the DC gulag, but the number is safely assessed to be over 100. There have been 300-something patriots been convicted with essentially trespassing, misdemeanors on government property, but they've had their lives ruined.
Oh yeah.
And they've had this millstone wrapped around their neck because it's in association with this. And the hits the hits just keep coming too.
Yeah.
Today, the only person who died in politically motivated violence at the Capitol on January 6th was Ashley Babbitt.
Mm-hmm.
And her mom today, 2 years later, and none of her surviving family, nobody was ever called in to testify about Ashley Babbitt to the January 6th committee. Her mother today, her mother's name is Mickey Withoff. Mickey Withoff went to a memorial vigil for her daughter,
Mm-hmm.
an Air Force who was murdered while she was helpless and offenseless at the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
Mickey Withoff went to the Capitol today and held an individually held memorial service for her slain daughter, and was arrested by DC police
Wow.
for jaywalking.
Wow.
That jaywalking charge, I have never heard of a human being charged with and held with jaywalking.
Right.
I've lived and worked in DC a few years. I've seen a lot. I've never seen it enforced. I've seen a lot of political action. It's a city of protesters.
Mm-hmm.
Every day, everywhere you go protesting. No one ever gets dragged off the street by DC cops for obstructing traffic.
Yeah.
But Mickey Withoff did today, and it's of what she was doing. She was trying to bring light.
Yeah.
About the narrative to her daughter's death.
Yeah.
It's absolutely inexcusable that this would happen.
Yeah.
And whoever's responsible for giving the order, because that wasn't an officer going, "Oh, I'm just gonna enforce the law here because it's my job. It's my job. That officer was given an order. That officer had to choose between following that order, his job safe,
Yeah.
or following his conscience, and doing the right. Fortunately, he chose wrong.
Yeah.
But whoever gave the order to arrest her, he publicly flogged.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just not okay.
What's interesting is you're talking about how she's being bringing light to what happened to her daughter. You were talking about how many people have actually been arrested, how many people that are actually sitting in jail, how many people have actually been tried, how many people have been given due process. This goes back to the danger of really what we're living in. We're not living in a free nation when you have people arrested. And I don't care what anybody says, unwilling to look at some of the facts that surround what happened on January, are purposely not choosing to look at it because it's right there. The information that surrounded the whole January 6th thing, there was one message, as you said, there's a unified message sent to the American people that this was a dangerous direction. This was Trump's people. Trump was behind this. There was so much information, you guys, that was completely blacked out by the media. Literally outright lies that were being reported about January 6th. Why? And here we are 2 years later, and guess what? Into someone's house, and they're watching it on their television, and they're just in tears. They believe that this actually took place. On they believe this stuff. They have no idea how many people were arrested. They have how many people have completely lost. Not that lost their lives because they were essentially their own lives. We're not even going to get into that. But the people who's been completely ruined, because how are they going to be able to work and provide for their families and get a job and do these normal things, because they will be forever marked by insurrectionists. I'm telling you, it's dangerous what we're living in right now. Completely dangerous. It goes back to the speaker thing where it's like you're being labeled in a very powerful way. The media is powerful, you guys. I know we've been saying, but the media is powerful in how they can label you. Shape your identity. They can morph your identity right there on the world's. And you end up like you said, Daryl, with your whole lifelong friends that no longer connected to you because they've chosen to believe a narrative. And so I think that's the sad part to me about the whole January 6th thing. I know people personally that absolutely believe that people just rushed into the Capitol, Trump's people, and all these different things. This is my question. I want to know how many people from Antifa and Black Lives Matter are in a prison cell for what they did during the summer of. I want to know how many of those.
I'm glad you asked that question because I have.
Repeat that, Daryl.
I have that answer because I've actually been researching this. The number of Black Lives Matter and Antifa protesters held longer than 30 hours for the Summer of Love.
Wow.
0.
I believe it.
0. As a matter of fact, he was vice president, in air quotes, set up a legal defense fund to make sure that people, while violently rioting, burning down buildings, essentially sometimes assaulting and killing people,
yes,
were released as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's 0.
The hypocrisy of just absolutely, it's mind-boggling. Yeah. I mean, I have guys from the JTTF, the Joint Terror Task Force, the FBI's Joint Terror Task Force, who walked into my office without a warrant and tried to interrogate me, Gestapo tactics. I have personally, allow me a moment of pride. I have personally hunted, killed, detained, exploited, and prosecuted terrorists by myself, me, on my than the entire Joint Terror Task Force has.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
if you're going to call me a terrorist,
Right.
you better understand that you're aligning yourself with Hamas, Hezbollah, and every other terrorist organization who simply just looks back at the good guys and says, "Oh well, you're terrorists too." You're delegitimizing any
That just goes to show you right there that results don't matter. And only thing these people respect is brute force. And so we're gonna move to the next story, and the next story is a gentleman from South America, and this gentleman, what's his name? I guess he has some name that you really can't pronounce. It really doesn't matter. Okay, he's a father, and he decided that
Rene Ramos.
Yeah, he decided he was gonna do a little bit of trolling on the left. So
I wouldn't say it was trolling. I would say he was very serious about what he did. But some people in the LGBT community are frowning upon it.
So the story is a man legally changed gender to gain custody of his kid. So if you're not familiar in these circles, you might be a normie watching this. You might not know this thing, but men and when it comes to custody and it comes to divorce and all these things, worldwide seems to be geared against men. So what this man did was he legally changed his gender so he can flip to the other side. Now, in the world of LGBTQ science, anyone can claim to be anything at any given time, but in this instance, they are a little bit cowed by this man's strategy to get custody of his children. So knows this story a little bit better than me. You can kind of run it.
Well, I mean, essentially, like you said, this is it, and he decided to, he didn't make any changes or alter his body, just to keep that in mind.
Which is his right.
Male
presenting.
He made no changes whatsoever. He's still very clearly, as you can see, a man. This was him speaking to local news there. But what was interesting about this was that he decided to change his sex basically legally on paper in order to protect his daughters. Apparently, his daughters were in an abusive relationship with their mother, who I guess he was married to at one point, no longer is. But anyways. He wanted custody of his daughters, so he decided that he was going to change his sex because he said that for women in the system in Ecuador over men. So the LGBT community did not like that because they essentially kind of harms our movement. But what's interesting to me is that trying to understand their point in how it harms their movement. It's all they don't like the fact that someone can just go and decide that they're when they're not.
That's also you can think about if you look at Elon Musk, it's problematic that he even exists because he's so deep into the green movement that for the longest on the green side, he was seen as the savior of the green movement. About Tony Stark from the Avengers, they actually modeled that a lot after Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
These people, they prop people up as their god, and this is just an example of that. But when you use that against them, or you start cutting against the things that they want to do, all of a sudden you get it. So Elon Musk is problematic on the green side. He's the father of electric cars, and he's trying to populate Mars, and all these different things. But the second he starts competitive, he's not problematic. This gentleman right here, he sees that the system is geared towards women, so now he identifies as a woman. All of a sudden, people claim they want to claim is problematic. He did the same thing with whenever what was the gentleman that ran for the woman now that ran for governor of California? He was all of a sudden problematic because he decided he won. Who I'm talking about, right? He ran for California governor. He became a woman, being Daryl. You remember this gentleman's name?
Jenner.
You're not talking about Bruce Jenner.
Bruce Jenner. So anyway,
okay.
So Bruce Jenner decides to come out as a
doing
Republican.
business as Caitlyn Jenner.
Yes. So Caitlyn Jenner decides to run for governor as a Republican, and all of a sudden it's problematic that this person is to be in the trans So these shows are just tools. You know, these are just
Well, I
tools.
think
And
the
Daryl,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Daryl. You can speak.
I think that we've caught the quilt bag movement red-handed. They want to have their cake, okay? They want to. You said it brilliantly in that they want to tout themselves as their own god. But then when you start using their logic, and that's an abuse of the term, but when you start trying to transfer their argument into anything outside of their own special little world, well, then all of a sudden they melt down because it's not special anymore.
Exactly.
Oh, no, that's not what I meant. Not what I meant. It's supposed to be about me. I don't care. That's the thing that they keep forgetting. None of us care. Like about. Like, I don't care about most people, period. So why are you intimate details of your life and literally pushing it into my face? Why are we creating new rules to systems that existed for centuries just fine without you? But then when little Snooky Ookums comes along, and especially we have to bend over backwards to create new rules that apply to everyone, just to kowtow to about 1%, 1.5% to the populace. But then when we try to apply those rules universally, like Mr. Ramos, oh well, no, those aren't your rules. Those are ours.
This is leverage we get to use against you.
Special rule.
Yeah, this just shows you right here that this is leverage they get to use against us, the people. So the leverage they get to use against us in the green movement, we want you to live in a tiny box and eat the bugs and all these different things. The rule for the LGBTQ community, we get to subvert your family. It's a family. It's subvert. These are tools as leverage to uproot the basic structures of society. So when you try to use these leverage for things that you want to do, for things that go against the narrative, all of a sudden this whole framework is problematic.
It's like Ukraine, you know. It's like I've never seen people be anti-war and like that. You know what I mean? Where it was like literally, it's like, oh, we're here. Let's arm the Ukrainian people and send them billions of dollars.
And we should definitely track and audit every single thing. Everything Trump's ever done, any of this wall, everything needs to be audited and tracked. But billions of dollars can flow into a country. Billions of dollars in weapons can flow into a country, but they don't need to be tracked. By goodness, you're working with the Russians.
You guys are absolutely. One of my favorite Christmas presents I got this year was from my. They got me a T-shirt that says, "I won't listen to gun control argument from the administration that armed the Taliban." You can't have it both ways. You're going to have a belief, no matter how stupid it is. Okay, bless you for having the belief. But then you can't undermine your own beliefs by saying only I can get this privilege. Only I get to do this. Only I get to be the complete and arbitrary determine what is right and good in this universe. I'm like, no, you don't.
Okay.
I mean, Janelle, I'm assuming here, and I'm sure that you won't mind, but I'm assuming, woman, how do you feel if some dude comes walking down the street and says, I'm a woman, you roar? I mean, how do you feel about these guys?
Kind of like we talked about in one of our very first shows, where I woke up this morning and didn't put a costume on in order to be who I am. And see, that really irritates particularly the transgender movement, because really what they don't see is like you are literally you're having to alter. It's kind of like that we're trolling. What's his name? I forget his name. The guy that played Superman on Twitter, and they were like, you know, he was like, you can't just putting on, you know, when you're trying to be a woman, you're putting there. We're like, well, you're not the real Superman, and he's like, yeah, that's right, I wore a costume. costume. You see what I'm saying? It's like they get really angry because we're living in a society where we're having to tiptoe around people that are living in a completely different reality than the rest of us. That's lunacy. We are literally having to, like you said, kowtow to when you think about it, the depths of mental illness that these people have to be living in to mutilate their own bodies and try to create assimilations, because that's what they're doing. They have to assimilations to make themselves look like, that they are a woman or that, or I am all of these different things, when it's not even reality at all. People would get out the butterfly net for that. But and mind you, just for the women out there, the feminist movement is completely silent about all of this. I mean, I don't know if you can hear how quiet they are, but they only get loud when they get their orders from D.C. They only decide that someone raped them when they get their orders from D.C. But anyways, that's a whole other subject for a whole other day. But we won't go there today.
We got one more story.
Oh yeah, what is that story?
The fourth story.
So this story is about court rules First Amendment is protected for a teacher who brought a MAGA hat to training.
Yeah, set the story up, Janelle.
Okay. So what ended up pretty straightforward. I believe this was in Washington. Washington State. There was, I believe it was
A teacher.
Yeah, it was a science teacher. I'm sorry. A sixth grade science teacher that brought a MAGA hat, and I don't believe he was wearing it. I'm almost certain not wearing it, but he had it in his hand or something like that. He had it he was singing, and he brought the hat though to. Sorry, because it's funny, because this guy was trolling. It's still funny. But he brought the hat to a cultural sensitivity and racial bias training. And I'm sorry. I mean that's like some passive aggressive trolling right there. Anyways, he didn't disrupt anything. And that was why that apparently was a federal appeal called that he wasn't, he had the First Amendment right to do so. But apparently there's different people that were in the vicinity that were very, very upset. Brought this hat. Mind you, he didn't actually do anything with it. He wasn't bothering anyone. He wasn't talking. He wasn't protesting anything. But again, let's just go back to what we're living in today in America, where you bring a hat. You don't get up and wear the hat. You don't get up and talk about the hat. You're not protesting anyone. You physically have something in your hand. And now, what that hat now represents, mind you, I'm just going to say it. I can't speak for BLM because they're in the doghouse with maybe like the country, because the rest of the country hasn't opened their eyes yet. But you could wear a BLM hat in this kind of setting, especially in something like bias training, and I guarantee you, no one would have batted an eye.
Oh, Daryl's like, what do you got to say?
I checked the Constitution. Amendment 1: Congress shall make no law representing the religion, prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble to petition government or press their government grievances. Petitioning, specifically assembling and petitioning the government to address the grievances, is what January 6th was all about.
Mm-hmm.
There's no mention of MAGA hats or exceptions or any of this. So I would say, point, our people collectively, the United States, the West, and even the world as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just talk about Americans right now have abdicated so much of their common sense. They've gotten rid of it completely, and now they go only with what the court says.
Yep.
Instead, I sue.
Yeah.
I was a First Amendment case today, and I'm not going to get into the details of the case because I'm trying to avoid being named. But At no point did anyone in this case say, free speech.
Mm-hmm.
Just done. And I could tell that everybody was waiting for someone to say, well, yeah, but it's free speech.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody said that. I'm like, dude, there was all this case law being laid out, arguments, and logic and reason. And I'm like, say the word free. I swear to God, I'm going to choke a baby. Look, people have just lost their ever loving about. Look, there's lots of stuff I don't like. Okay, I mean, if we're going to start alphabetically, Avatar, and we're going to just keep going all the way. There's a lot of stuff I don't like. But when I encounter something I in the world, I just do this. And I move on with my life.
Exactly.
I build a bridge and I get over it. I get on my getaway sticks and I just carry on with my life. If you are going to get triggered over a hat, then your parents didn't beat you enough as a child and teach you that your opinion doesn't matter.
Right. Absolutely.
Oh,
my goodness.
All right. Okay. With that, Daryl. Hopefully that's add. I guess we'll see you guys next week. But before we go, we need to say one thing we appreciate on this journey with us at projects and this thing we're trying to do. And if you're in the state of Oklahoma, or states, for that matter, we would love if you would come by our website project46.com, or if you have an Android device, you go on there and you look up Project 46 and you find our app and you download it, and that you would support. We have free content. We also have some paid content. We have some subscription services. If we want conservative media, we have to begin to support conservative media. We have to pay for the things that we want to see in this country. So if you're in Oklahoma and you want some conservative media, you want to support conservative media, please to download our app and support us and to share the content out here on a weekly basis. So if you can subscribe to Unwokeable, the Gary Lamb Network. Daryl Simmons has an awesome show.
Andrews,
special assignment. We also have our great documentaries coming. Find all of our great content. That's Project 46 on Facebook, the River TV on Facebook, Unwokeable on Facebook, also on YouTube. And also we are on Rumble. Find us on Rumble, Project 46. And I guess that's pretty much it. Janelle, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't think so.
Daryl, do you have anything to add before we go?
I think that was brilliant. Parting shot, though. Kevin and I have been talking. It's one of Project 46's goals to your carried into the places it's locked out of.
Yes.
And part of that is we would like to come visit your organization and help you be heard. Share with you what we're seeing. Share seeing that we're not. So if you or your organization want to meet with you, exchange with, we'd love to hear it. Email any of us here at Project 46. It's just our first name, so I'd be like Daryl at project46.com, or reach out to us through the website. We would love to help you see that you're not alone, because dividing us is how they keep defeating us.
Yep. So with that, I guess we'll take it off, and we'll see you guys next week on this wrap-up show Friday. So check us out next week, and with that, I guess we will call it.